Check the mic, we're going live. Stories told, they rise and dive. Topics fresh with every spin. You won't guess what's coming in. Every week a new surprise. Minds awake, never lies. Conversations bold and free. Tune in now, just wait and see. This podcast is uncalled for. Catch us here, there's so much more. Laughs and tales you can't ignore. A journey that will leave you floored. In the night or in the day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast is uncalled for. I have a very special guest with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Deepti. I'm a writer, engineer, and climate activist, and I recently wrote a fantasy novel called Fire's Ally.
All right, great. And you're here today to talk with me about transit, I believe, right? All right. So let's talk about it. So we're both in North America, which is notoriously we don't have very good transit outside of a couple of cities. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and I live in LA, which is especially notorious for being a car-centric city.
Mm-hmm. Same with Kansas City, where I am. So.
Yeah, and yeah, so a lot of the climate organizations that I'm involved with are very interested in increasing adoption of public transport because it has a lot of benefits. It decreases the amount of emissions because you've got fewer vehicles on the road. It's also good for accessibility. People who don't have cars and need other ways to get places. It tends to be inclusive for a variety of economic levels. And it's often a sign of, kind of a nice city. It's like a livable, walkable space where you don't spend all your time stuck in a car, and stuck in traffic.
Right. And as we both established, we're in cities that are not known for public transit. I'll let you describe LA's transit situation first, then I can tell you about Kansas City's transit situation. So.
Yeah, so LA is big and sprawling, and we have rail lines and we do have bus lines, and they do work if you're in an area in LA County that's well connected. But as soon as you're trying to go a significant distance, which you often have to, the bus becomes like less and less of a favorable option because getting anywhere takes a while. You're driving on the freeway for an hour just to go 20 miles sometimes. And so buses are usually a little slower than cars because they make stops and they're not going exactly where you want to go. And so the traffic that would have affected you in the car is now also going to affect you on the bus. So it sometimes becomes a challenge to use the bus for anything practical. So I chose my first house so that it would be on a bus line to my office. And that worked out really well. It was a short commute. It was like 15 minutes, and it was another additional 15-minute walk. And so for a while, I didn't have a car, and I thought, this is great. This is working. And I could stop at the grocery store on the way back from work. But it increasingly became more challenging to do that. I couldn't go anywhere else. I had like a short radius of stuff I used to go to near my house, and then the things that were along the bus line. And so I moved a short distance away, and now the bus line becomes more of a project and a commitment to say, okay, I need to budget an extra 40 minutes for every task. And it's hard to ask people to do that, I think. I still try to take the bus or the train, just to keep my hand in, just to have the practice. But it's a hard thing to do. So I think there are good lines, but there isn't good connectivity, and so that's kind of the challenge in LA.
All right. So here's Kansas City's transit situation. So there is Amtrak. Uh, Union Station is an active Amtrak station. I believe there's an Amtrak line out to LA. Um, um, there are Amtrak stops in Independence and Lee Summit, which are um, suburbs. Uh, we have the KC streetcar line. Currently, it's just the starter line from Union Station, looping around to River Markets. There are two extensions. One opens a little more than a month from now, all the way to UMKC, some 3 miles south of Union Station. They've been building that extension for a couple of years now, and there'll be a second extension, the Riverfront extension, which is a much smaller extension. Took them about a year to build, but that won't open until sometime next year. I'm going to guess April at the earliest. Um, Beyond that, and the streetcar is outstanding. It's actually quite popular around here. Um, Outside of that, good luck getting the buses if you're anywhere outside of the urban core of Kansas City. Uh, if you're out where I am in Overland Park in Johnson County, good luck getting a bus anywhere other than anytime other than rush hour. And it takes me. I had my car in the shop fairly recently, um, like all summer long. I had to get the engine completely replaced. Not cheap, by the way. And takes me about half hour to an hour to walk from my house to my shop. All right, and uh, just a testament of getting older, I guess. So that's the and good luck getting anywhere by bus on weekends. So now there's been clamoring for having some sort of a rail to the airports, which is if you're driving there, it's about half an hour northwest of downtown, uh, borderline on the edge of nowhere, and uh, and they just opened a new terminal building within the last couple of years too, which from what I've seen is nice. But but like Los Angeles, Kansas City, very spread. I mean, it was spread across 2 states and 5 counties total. So, uh, and hopefully we're on the right track. They're talking a couple more extensions to the streetcar system. Uh, Two that are currently in advanced planning. One, they just started a study recently to the 18th and Vine district, and another one that would be part of a broader green corridor, which frankly should all be rail, in my opinion, but only a small portion of it's connecting downtown Kansas City, Kansas to downtown KC Mo. So
And how does that work for trip planning? Like, are you able to plan a multi-leg trip and have connections to the places you want to go typically, or is that only in the urban center?
it really is just the urban core that we're talking about with connectivity. Yeah, like I said, good luck trying to get anywhere in the suburbs without having to take a car or worst case scenario, Uber and on that. So, so, so yeah, I know there are some cities in the U.S., New York most notably, that they have great transits compared to L.A. or KC. Uh, I've been on St. Louis's Metrolink uh, light rail, which is pretty cool. And I understand they're trying to get a new line put in there as well. So, um, let's see, what are some other good cities in the states that have pretty decent transit? Your observation. So,
So I've found that, on trips and stuff, I haven't tried to span the whole the whole city and see what it would be like. But I've had good experiences on the transit in New York, Boston, Chicago, a lot of the kind of
mhm.
east side cities. I
Right.
think it's because things are a little more dense and there's more of a node. Like you can go here, there's a lot of interesting stuff, as opposed to being this kind of sprawling
Hmm.
um, kind of collection of cities almost. That's what LA is like. But I'm sure it's possible to design a good transit system
Hmm.
for a sprawling city. We haven't really tried yet.
Right. Right. I agree. I don't think we've seriously tried yet. Some people have some good ideas, but they haven't quite tried yet. I've talked with the head of the KC Streetcar Authority about, hey, could we get some lines potentially out here to Johnson County? He said, yeah, that's part of the plan. Uh, and specifically, uh, this was an open house for that riverfront extension I told you about before they got started. Um, a lot of people there were saying, well, let's connect out to Gardner, which is like even further out than what I'm talking about are uh, very, very much small town America in Gardner. Uh, so that's really the scope that's we need to start thinking about. How do we build transit systems that, yeah, will cut down on car use, make it more, make it more convenient for people who might not necessarily be able to afford cars to get to and from work and, and everything, and go and see the sights as well. Um, I think part of it, certainly in the case of KC, they have identified certain transit corridors that would I think rail would definitely work good on. Uh, but even then, where it takes what we're talking about is takes years, almost a decade to really fully implement. I'm learning the hard way with one of these plans that it's an east-west line. The current streetcar just runs north-south for the most part. So we're talking east-west, and they started in 22, and they're on 32 and be fully implemented, fully built, and everything. So what's uh what's your take on that? Why does it take so long for these plans to come to fruition, if you will? So.
Yeah, I think there's probably layers and layers of bureaucracy. There's approvals and permissions and things that you have to get. And I think also sometimes there are um, objections, right? You have to get public comments, and then there's been cases where uh, things have been stopped because people didn't want the station near them, or they didn't want the bike lanes near them, or
Mhm.
so it's kind of like NIMBYism sometimes that gets in the way.
Yep.
Um, it's a complicated world, the kind of the city planning and government and all of it that I'm only getting exposure to through the organizations I work with, as they try to lobby these different organizations and get things passed through.
Hmm. Yeah. And just for the benefit of our audience, NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I think there's a hint of that too around here. South of UMKC, that there's another potential route for the streetcar. Would take you into the um, neighborhoods of Brookside and Waldo. Uh, Brookside, a little more upper class and everything. Waldo, very middle class, I think. could definitely use transit, especially along Warnold Road, which in Waldo uh, is a battle zone. That's
Mhm.
the best way to describe that stretch of road. I think streetcar would definitely work down there and has in the past. So the current streetcar system, yeah, that only opened in 2016. So it's still still a fairly new thing, but the history of streetcars in Kansas City, we're going back. Um, um, I think it's the 50s when the all the streetcar lines around the country were being bought out and paved over to make way for mass-produced cars.
Mhm.
You know, and when they're putting in
Yeah,
these and when they're putting in these new roads, they're finding these old rails, buried in the concrete where these old streetcars used to run and everything. So, yeah, that's very interesting that this is a form of transit that's been in the DNA of some of our cities, but long forgotten in a lot of cases. Right?
yeah, and I think people do sort of measure the effectiveness of the transit based on how many people are using it. Um, and I was just reading a study earlier that as areas get gentrified, the
Hmm.
use of the rail in those areas goes down, and so that kind of becomes more of a justification to get rid of it. Um, or it's not really producing revenue anymore.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of one of those things where you have to sort of think a little bit big picture and think, where can I put it where it will get used? What
Hmm.
else do I need to do to make sure it gets used? Because one of the things that happened kind of in South Bay, Los Angeles, was this. There were people who wanted bike lanes, which is very necessary. Riding a bike in the LA area is quite scary without
Hmm.
bike lanes. Um, and but the thing is, I guess it wasn't thought through enough that there wasn't really anywhere to go to and from the bike lane. They put a bike lane in for a stretch, but you can't adopt it unless you can make a full route with your bike. And so you kind of have to think these things through, like,
Hmm.
where will the traffic for this, or the usage for this leg of the public transport come from? How do they get there? Where do they go? And you have to kind of do some additional work in the surrounding area to make sure that it actually does get used. And so I think as activists, like, we have to think bigger picture and not be like, hey, can you just put in this one
Hmm.
element of the system? Could you like close the loop on it?
Right.
So that's something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. A lot of road diets, as they're called, around
Yeah.
town. They're taking out lanes of traffic, and then in their place, we're seeing bike lanes and all that. We're seeing a lot of bike paths and all this stuff. So yeah, when we're, I guess, holistically, if we're talking about transit, we're not just talking about buses and rail and everything. We have to take into account bikes and all that, and those scooters as well that I've seen pop around here and there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think you almost have to think through, like, what are the different people who are going to be on this bus? Some people biked here, so that you need to have the bike racks. And some people took their scooter here, so there needs to
Hmm.
be a place where they can drop it off. Um, some people walked here, some people drove to the stop. So there's like all these different, yeah, I think you have to assume that people are going to be doing a variety of different things, including driving. Like, some people may have to drive,
Hmm.
um, either, because of their circumstances or because they're carrying something heavy. So, like, I think there's, you have to assume that there's going to be a diversity of
Hmm.
people and situations and routes that I think people are doing on paper, but I'm not sure if it's fully translating into the plans.
Right, right. I agree. That's where these transit corridors I talked about earlier. There's where you need to start. If you're going to uh, implement. I think buses are good short-term solution, but long-term it really does need to be rail because let's be honest, uh, buses have a stigma to them. Right?
Hmm.
Yeah. like only poor people take the bus, and of course around here we still have a whole racism thing going on. By which I mean uh, let's talk about Troost Avenue here in KC. That's long been considered the racial dividing line. To the east is very African American and a lot of poor people on that side. To the west, that's all all the white folks. Yeah. Until you reach 435, and then yeah, then all that's and then KCK, kind of the same thing. Uh, Pockets of poor people, whether it be African American or in case of KCK, a big Hispanic community there too. So how do we connect these people and get them access to better jobs and get over the fact that this was done in the past? Let's move forward to the future together and all that. So yeah, I do believe that certainly certainly in my area that racism also plays a role in what we're talking about. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are also kind of like reinforcing each other because so on the bus lines that are really inconvenient, right, that take a super long time,
mhm.
no one goes on them if they have if they have any other choice. Like
Right.
you I could drive or I could take the bus, but I'm not going to take the bus if it's like a really bad option.
Hmm.
And so the only people on the bus are the people who have no other choice. So they, maybe they can't afford a car or, um, you know, any other factors that prevent them from being able to do something that's more convenient to them. And so I guess for some people that does add a stigma because you're around people you wouldn't normally be around, or it's a lower socioeconomic
Hmm.
bracket, and so it becomes even more of a bad option, and it gets neglected, right? Like the people who have no other choices, they're not activating about it. They don't have time to call city council and complain,
Hmm.
or raise a stink about it. So it gets ignored, and it just kind of gets worse and worse. Um, and the lack of good transportation options makes it hard for people to get a job and to improve their so it's like it's very like locked in place by all these different factors all making things
Hmm.
worse. um but also, I mean, I think it is possible to unravel. Like you fix one factor, it does sort of loosen the grip on all the other ones.
Hmm.
um but yeah, it's a good point. There is a racism aspect as well, and a class aspect for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. So, so of course, other countries have figured this out decades, if not centuries ago. Would you? I think you would agree with me there, right? So, uh, let's use London as an example. That's a great example of a city that's has figured out transit, and they just opened a couple of years ago their Elizabeth line, the Cross Elizabeth, which still took them 13 years to fully implement. Right? We're talking about integrating older um, older rail as well as digging brand new tunnels underneath London, which already has plenty of tunnels to begin with the other for the underground. That so new tunnels for these new trains. So, and yeah, yeah. So it's not just the U.S. that it takes a while for transit projects to uh, get implemented. Just look across the pond. Yeah.
Yes. And I think there's I think less political reward for doing a good job of maintaining something.
Hmm.
It's kind of it's something that I've read this in articles of describing the politics of various places, and you need to be constantly maintaining and upgrading and, making small incremental improvements, or else it kind of degrades. And that's not the thing that gets you, um, reelected or that you
Hmm.
put on your campaign platform. And so I think we as citizens need to kind of be aware of that and maybe reward people who are doing a good job of the maintenance or
Hmm.
ask them to.
Right, right. And yeah, I think elsewhere in the world it's just seen as, this is a basic necessity for
Yes.
city living. London's a good example. Tokyo is a good example too. The number of uh, the amount of transit in that city, well, it's kind of necessary when you have 37 million within your city's limits there, and not everyone can drive. Yeah, you know, so so and uh, and I think um, one thing about uh, the U.S. there seems to be uh, there seems to me to be this notion that things are only good if you can make a profit off of it. Yeah, and the point of things like just basic stuff like getting around town, there shouldn't be a profit motive to this. I think our American thinking is completely wrong on
Hmm.
this, and but yeah, we need to find better ways to address and properly fund transit uh, in this country, and starting, at the basic local level, with your transit authorities and stuff, and the different agencies like the streetcars is a different agency from our transit authority, and so they're able to do things that the transit authority frankly can't right now. So yeah, so
Yeah, completely agree with you. I think there's some there's something in the cultural atmosphere in the US that's kind of pro car and anti public transport.
mhm,
And I don't think I think it's learned. I think it's some, artifact of the car lobby,
mhm,
having so much influence over city planning. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think alongside everything else, we need to be thinking about how do we change the culture and how do we um maybe glamorize taking public transport, maybe like tell different stories about it.
right.
I've always found it super fun. Like when I'm on a train, I'm like, it has some kind of romance to it, like some historical
Mhm.
people watching. Uh, I can write on the train. It has something. It has some storytelling for me that I kind of I wish would catch on.
Yeah. Yeah, storytelling in a way that flying can't, and well, you can get a little bit of it with driving as well, but if you're the one doing the driving, you shouldn't be paying attention to everything around you. So,
Exactly.
but I do agree with you on the rail aspects. There's a line that on Amtrak, the Missouri River Runner runs between Kansas City and St. Louis, and you get fantastic views of the Missouri countryside going on that train. So highly I recommend if you're ever in the area. So yeah, and also the same note with the streetcar, you get a really cool view of the city that you otherwise wouldn't just driving, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, and you know, it's fun and it's free too. That yeah, yeah they made the taxing structure for the streetcar uh, such that you can just step on and it's free. And I think that's a huge attraction associated with it too. So
Yeah. And it's also kind of like it's even for people who do drive, I think it's nice to have a backup option if you're ever, out of gas or
Mhm.
out of phone charge, or it's kind of it's like a security and resilience type of thing
Yeah.
that you're not dependent on any one thing. You've got multiple options to get anywhere. And even
Mhm.
if you're out of money, like how nice that it's free. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we only have a couple more minutes left, unfortunately. So, do you have any closing thoughts? Or- uh, any closing thoughts? So,
Um, no, I just encourage everyone to kind of look at what local organizations are working on public transport in your area, wherever you are. And they often give you easy ways to get involved. Like the most low commitment way is just sign a petition or something.
mhm.
But it's interesting stuff. Like go to meetings. It sounds strange, I guess, to most people, but these are fun. Like there's a very committed people. Some will take you on a bus tour if you're a city and like give you educational um seminars and things like that. I don't know. I've found it interesting. There's frustrating aspects about like why things are so stuck. Um, but also it's a good way to get involved in like, civic activity, get involved in your community. Um, and yeah, I have no reason not to it, in my opinion.
All right. All right. I agree with that. And we will go ahead and end with that. We'll stick around for a couple minutes after I turn the recording off and talk a little bit. But for the rest of you, thank you for listening, and we will talk next time. This podcast is Uncalled For, is hosted, produced, and edited by myself, Mike Chernevsky. Our opening music is the This Podcast is Uncalled For theme, which was created at suno.com, suno.com. Our outro music for this episode is Not on the Bus by U.S. Army Blues, licensed under a public domain Mark 1.0 license.
Please support the podcast and purchase our exclusive Uncalled For merchandise. T-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and so much more. Go to www.cafepress.com/uncalledforpod. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.